It was the same. It was exactly the same thing with
interracial marriage.
Interracial marriage, and I think it's crazy when people say that it's not due to prejudice, because I grew up in Rexburg, Idaho. My father taught at Ricks College. They were the most...
Now BYU, Idaho.
Yeah, it's like... everybody was white, except for the Mexican migrant workers who would come.
Uh-huh.
But we didn't really see them much.
Right.
It was a white Mormon town. It's all I ever knew. I never saw a black person in real life till I was in high school.
Huh.
At a track meet, and I was like, I want to sit close to them. So
like, wow.
But it's something different.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, and they would always say, we are not prejudiced. We do not support this, separation and slavery was wrong and blah, blah, blah. And the church was never prejudiced against blacks. But it was palpable.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like you would say one thing, but you would look around and you would completely feel the incredible prejudice against black people.
If a man came home and was like, this is my fiance, and it was a black woman, it would have been...
I remember my sister, I think, was thinking about going out on a date with a black guy who was going to Ricks College at the time, and everyone got so nervous and freaking out, and it just couldn't happen. And I was like... And then I remember talking to my mom about interracial marriage when I was younger.
I do too, actually.
I was like, okay, so what's wrong with interracial marriage? And just think about right now, if that bothers you in any way whatsoever, why does it? But she couldn't say a reason, because she knew that we weren't supposed to be prejudiced, because you're not supposed to be prejudiced.
Right.
So she's like, well, and I've read this also, like, leaders of the church said this, but they're like, because of the children. The children are going to face discrimination.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want those children... Life is hard enough already, and marriage is hard enough already to bring, like, that, the prejudice of other people into it. Or the differences in background or culture, which is ridiculous. But,
because everyone is everyone is mixed.
So I was like...
You know what I mean?
I asked my mom, I said, because of prejudice, and people will judge them or whatever. People like who? People like who? Tell me who's going to do that. People like you? That's what I said. I said, people like you, are you going to?
Are you going to be prejudiced against that child?
Right, I was like, I'm not going to be. And it seems like instead of trying to keep these people apart, you should want them to, if two people are in love, you should want them to marry, and you should fight against the prejudice, not against the marriage.
Right. You should walk around saying, yeah, they better get married, and I'm going to stand up to anyone who says anything about their offspring or them.
Right, and you should take the opportunity.
That's the fight.
Like, if anybody, because the children aren't, people aren't going to be prejudiced against that child, as I've seen over and over and over again.
Of course not.
Most people aren't, and the people who are, it's the perfect opportunity
for them to face
to see what's going on and what's real, and this child is happy with their parents, and they're glad to be born with the mom they have, they love the dad they have, and everything's cool. It's an opportunity for you to learn and grow, not let's try and
keep the status quo, keep these people
and
separated.
blame it on other people's prejudice when it's our own prejudice. It's our own prejudice.
Well, and
to think that you're, I don't know, like you're saying that you're pro-marriage or you're trying to protect marriage, but you're trying to keep some people out of it.
Right.
Or if you're pro-marriage or you're trying to protect marriage, you would try and get these people together.
Right.
And you would try and say, and support them and add a support instead of you're the weakening force in their marriage, not whatever's going between them, because they love each other. They want to get married.
Well, exactly. It's like having a product, and you're saying, this product really works. However, I don't want you guys to use it. It probably actually worked for you too, but I don't want you to use it. It's like you're saying that the institution of marriage is holy, it's worth protecting, it's all of these things. And you're saying that it's the best way for society to be, it is the foundation for any, God-fearing society, is marriage and this nuclear family and all this. But then you're saying to two people who actually are buying into this idea, they're like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is a great way for me to build a foundation for my life, and I want to build a family within this societal convention. It's like you're saying to them, you can't do it. We have to protect it. We have to protect it for ourselves and for our children, even though one of your children may be a gay who wants to also take part in this convention. I mean, just the idea of protecting marriage. You know what it reminds me of? I haven't talked about this, but it reminds me of when Fidel Castro took over Cuba in 1959, and his whole idea of how to keep the people with him was the word la revolucion. Like, it was like, we're fighting for la revolucion, and no one really know what they were revolutioning against.
What is this for?
It was, was it against America? Was it against, the control of the communists in Russia? Was it all these things? And even today, the USSR obviously no longer exists. And people today still, I watched a program on the History Channel about people who are like, we're still fighting for La Revolucion. It's just really keeping us going. It's La Revolucion. And it's like, if you really have to break down what the La Revolucion is, well, you're an independent country. I mean, granted, you're being governed by Fidel Castro, who is like, considered to be a dictator by many, but what is La Revolucion? It's just, there's no revolucion. It's an idea that people are holding on to. It's a fear tactic. It's a way of keeping people committed to an idea when there's actually no real reason to be committed to it except for societal control. So I don't know, that's what it makes me think of, like, protecting marriage. Protect marriage. You need to protect it. And it's like, if you really break down what you're protecting it for and who you're protecting it against, it doesn't really hold water.
Right, or when people say degrade, like it will degrade marriage.
Right.
Like, to include more people in it. It makes no sense.
To expand its meaning is degrading. What I think is degrading is infidelity. What I think is degrading is divorce. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want to look at it that way.
Or to say that marriage is so weak, or
so unimportant? Or
yeah, that you can
cast it aside.
You can easily, like if we were in love,
right?
That what somebody else did or how somebody else defined marriage would degrade us.
Would somehow degrade our... Well, and I'm not saying people shouldn't get divorced or, not every relationship works out, but like, if you really are going to look at what's wrong with marriage or what's happening with marriage that's bad, then let's pour our money and our energy into marriage counseling. Let's pour our collective consciousness into creating a little more importance behind marriage, that maybe we stick to it a year longer than we wanted to. We don't just get divorced. I don't know, it's just
an
idea.
But I think it's degrading to marriage to say that you can degrade marriage so easily.
Right?
Like, I think it's degrading to marriage to say that since how long has gay marriage been legal in California?
5 months, whatever, 4 months.
To say that like, since the gays got married in California and were legally, had legal status, that my parents' marriage was degraded. Like, nothing... I know, my parents have an amazing marriage. Nothing that anyone can do can degrade that marriage. Nothing that anybody out there can do is going to degrade my parents' relationship or my parents' marriage. It's just not going to happen.
It's not.
And even if the institution of marriage was taken away from everyone, what could be more... You would think what could be more destructive to marriage than that.
Right, it's disappearing.
It still is not going to degrade my parents' marriage.
Because they still have a marriage of souls.
If marriage was illegal in America, Mormons would still get married in the temple. Mormons would still marry, and they would still have this commitment. They would still have their ceremony. And it's the same thing, even if you make it illegal for gays to get married, it's not going to degrade their marriage. If we were going to get married, there's nothing anyone out there could do to degrade our marriage. And it's silly to say, well, we don't want to name it marriage, because we have friends who get... Like, Carlos and Joe just got married.
They just got married.
Our Mormon friend Carlos. I mean...
And they call each other husbands.
And they got married in Costa Rica, right?
Right.
And so, whatever, if it's not legally recognized... If they don't get the same legal protections as straight couples, it's still not going to degrade their marriage.
It's not.
And everyone calls it marriage. Nobody's going to... they're married.